Hey students, this is lesson 1-4, properties of real numbers. We're going to learn how to identify and use properties of real numbers. You do need to know these properties, so try to concentrate as soon as possible on that. Go ahead and do this review. Make sure you look closely at the vocabulary builder. That's an important part also. You can check back with your answers. All right, so we're going to learn some properties here, and take a note of all these properties here. Go ahead and pause if you want, and you can kind of peruse through them. You do need to know all of these. So we're going to draw a line from each property in column A to the equation that illustrates it in column B. I would suggest you do this on your own and check back with the answers, see if you got them right. I'll try and explain some of them that I think students might have a little bit of trouble with. But go ahead and pause now and come back and check your answers. All right, go ahead and check your answers there. And we're going to talk about these properties. It says which property is illustrated by each statement. In the first one, we're multiplying by 0 and we get 0. So if you go back to your property sheet, somewhere where you're multiplying by 0 to get 0, that would be this property right here, the 0 property of multiplication. So let's write that in, 0 property of multiplication. Okay, and this one, the thing you want to notice is that the parentheses around the x and the 3 here, and here they're around the 3 and the 6. So the parentheses moved. The property where the parentheses are moving, that is the associative property. Right here, notice they're around the A and the B, and here they're around the B and the C. So that one's going to be the associative property of addition. Associative property of addition. Careful how you abbreviate associative. And the last one, we're adding 0. And here's what I want you to notice here, that you end up with the same thing. Whenever that happens, that's an identity. So think of yourself as your identity is another way of being you. So, it's an identity property, which are these properties here. And there's 2 of them, one for addition and one for multiplication. The way you get the number back in addition is you add 0. The way you get the number in multiplication is you multiply by 1. So, and since we're adding here, that's the identity property of addition. And I'll abbreviate that using a plus sign. Go ahead and try these problems. I'll pause now. All right, you can use these properties to help simplify things. So if you kind of know the properties, it makes you better at number sense. And what we need to do here, we're going to a movie and we're going to buy 3 things. We're going to buy a movie ticket for $6.75, a drink for $1.90, and popcorn for $2.25. So we really just need to add these up. And normally when you go to a restaurant, you don't bring your calculator, and you probably don't even take your phone out, and you really don't need to do that. But in the normal order of operations, it's implied that we're going to do that first. But as I look at this, what I would rather do is add these 2 first. And we can do that because this is the same as my original expression. I just switched them around, and notice I went from there and switched those 2 things around. That's the commutative property. of addition. Okay, now I do not want to add the 6.75 plus the 190. I want to add the 2.25 plus the 6.75 together first. And then I want to add the 190. And that's okay. You can move parentheses like that as long as you have addition. That's the associative property of addition. And now I'm just going to simplify it. 2.25. I'm really going to add those two parts. That's $1 plus $2 plus $6, $9 plus $1.90, and I'll do all that in my head. That's $10.90. All right. Go ahead and try the next problem and see if you can't figure out how to use the properties to make that go a little easier. So actually, I multiplied 4 times 3 first. Then I multiplied by 6. 4 times 3 is easy, that's 12. 12 times 6, I can do in my head, that's 72. And then do the 10 last because multiplying by 10 just adds a 0 on to the end of the answer. So it works out pretty good that way. All right. We can also simplify expressions if we know these properties. And this first expression, 4 times the quantity 8n, you might be thinking, whoa, that's got a variable in that. That might be pretty tough. But if we think about the properties, this is all multiplication. Multiplication is associative. So this is exactly the same problem. And now I can simplify that because I know what 4 times 8 is. That's just 32. And so, and that's a much simpler form of that expression. Again, the second one, 3 plus 5b and then add 7 to that, what would that be? I'm not exactly sure, but it would be the same as this, 7 plus 3 plus 5b, because I can switch the 7 around and then move the parentheses. That's the commutative and the associative properties. And now I have the 7 and 3 together. I'll just make that 10. So this is equal to 10 plus 5b, which is, again, a simpler expression. This last one thing I'm going to do is remember that when you're multiplying fractions, you multiply the numerators all together, you multiply the denominators all together, and these are all multiplications. So I'm going to separate this way. I'm going to take that fraction 8/2 and the fraction x over x, and then the fraction y separately. Actually, we could write it as y over 1 if we want. That's the same as y, anything divided by 1 is. And now that I have it this way, I know that 8 divided by 2 is 4. So that simplifies to that. X divided by x, some of you are thinking, oh, I'm not sure what that is, but think about that. Any number divided by itself is always equal to 1, as long as the number is 0. So now I have 4 times 1, and then times y. And 4 times 1 using the identity property of multiplication is just 4y. Now, doesn't that look a lot nicer than that original? All right, you need to try some of those and see if you can fill in the properties as you go here. Yeah, I didn't really like the way they set up the last one, so I scribbled it out and see if you don't understand my way better. Basically, I'm just breaking out the fractions, 8/12 m over m and 1 over n. And 8/12 is 2/3, and m over m is 1. And 2/3 times 1 is 2/3 here, times 1 over n. 2 times 1 is 2, 3 times n is 3n. All right, one more problem to do. Using deductive reasoning and counterexamples. Now, if something is true, then we need to prove it's true or give a reason, which is a property. If it's false, all we need to do is show one counterexample, one time that it doesn't work. So for the first problem, we are going to say, let's just let A be 5 and B be 4. And so we're going to do this, 5 minus 4, and that's equal to 1. Then we're going to switch them around and do 4 minus 5, and that's equal to -1. And right now, we know that that's not true because 1 is not equal to -1. So we're going to say that's false. false, and our counter examples right there. Now the second one, for all real numbers a, b, and c, a times b times c is equal to a times c times b. Now you could try an example and see if this works. Like you could put a 3 and a 2 and a 4 there for a, b, and c, and then you would just switch around 4 and 2. I hope some of you are thinking, oh, you just switched them around. That's the commutative property, which of course it is. And you could see that either way you multiply those, you're going to get 24. But all you need to say is this, that is equal to that by the commutative property of multiplication. All right, try the last problem and check back with your answers. All right, so there's your answers. I'd like to do this lesson check and be ready to discuss that in class tomorrow. And that's it. I'll see you tomorrow.